Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. I'm incredibly honoured to be joined by two incredible Olympian champions, Steve Backley OBE, Roger Black MBE. Thank you very, very much. It's a real honour and a privilege. So thank you. And I'm really excited. I'm also really nervous because I don't think I've ever spoken to Olympians before. So thank you very much. And one of the first questions I've had, and actually, I don't think either of you need any introduction.
Oh, you'd be surprised as the years go by.
We're of an age, Stephen. We're of an age.
Do you know what? I was looking up and I was doing some research on both of you and what you're coming up. And I remember in my young age, 1991, Roger, I think something big happened when you won World Championship, 4x400. That was the time I met my late wife. So I remember it very, very well. And
you know, Steve, it's really interesting. People, it was a while ago that Steve and I were competing, but it's so lovely now as you get older. People say things like that. They remember the year, they remember the time because something, you met your wife then, we get a lot of people saying, I remember sitting on the sofa with my parents and stuff like that. To be part of those, in that case, winning the World Championships with John Regis and Chris Akabusi and Derek Redmond, is such a moment that people remember, and they don't just remember the performance; they remember what they were doing, how old they were, and who they were with at the time. So we're very lucky to have had that.
And I remember, Steve, you being Mr. Consistent.
Oh yeah,
all the time. Unbelievable.
I'll take that.
But
it was consistently average.
Oh, and you two set yourself up in business together.
Backley Black. Correct. Yeah. So shall I give you a little potted history of how that happened? I mean, you've gone way back to the start. We competed in the 80s, the 90s, and the early noughties, as you say. Roger, you retired slightly before me, didn't you? I mean, late 90s. I continued for another Olympic cycle through to Athens, and then realised I was getting too old for throwing things. It's a young man's sport. I was 34. I was an old man by the time I finished. So, it seems a long time ago, nearly 20 years ago now. So I retired, and it's interesting, isn't it? It's well documented when sports people retire, it's a challenge because you can't replace what you did, and you're crazy to try. But I was aware of what Roger was doing. We were friends in sports and followed his career, retiring slightly before me, and entered this world of speaking on a stage and doing what might be called motivational speaking. I thought, what's that all about? I went along to watch Roger. I thought, he made that look easy. So I thought I'd give that a go. And do you know what was interesting? Actually, a big turning point for us, Stephen, was I entered that world and Roger was already well established in that world. But what we realized, and we got together, it was we were missing a trick because you're only scratching the surface. If you're genuinely passionate about performance, which we are, we were only scratching the surface of how we could help people. Motivation is a big part of it, and a stage presentation is still a big part of our lives. But digging a bit deeper is why we came together. In all its guises.
If I take a step back when you're with your start of your careers, that mindset is really, really important. So how do people, and again, estate agencies is predominantly thought by everybody, having that growth mindset all the time? I'm sure that you've had numerous disappointments over the time, maybe rejections into not getting into the teams and in the Olympics and stuff like that. How do you get that mindset and growth mindset?
Well, I think when you start out, you're not really thinking like that. You're invariably in sport. You're young. You're talented. It's obvious you're talented. If it's clear, and you compete, and you don't really think about those sort of things. When you start to think about these things, is when you get a bit older. Everyone else gets a bit bigger, and you start to compete on a bigger stage against the best in the world. And you realise that actually, there's more to it than just your physical talent, and that's where the mindset comes in. In both our cases, we had no choice but to master it because we both had very serious injuries early on in our careers that potentially were going to stop our careers, and fortunately didn't. And so, then you really have to dig deep and work out the mindset. And some people, you could argue, are born with it, but I think from our experience, we all have bits of it, but we can all get better. And it's having that open-minded, that inquisitiveness, and that holding on to that dream, in our case of winning Olympic medals, but certainly in estate agency or in entrepreneurship, which Steve and I are entrepreneurs. We've been entrepreneurs longer than we were athletes. You start things, you have a dream, you have a goal, there's a process. And I think one of the things is true in life is that success leaves clues. And if you collaborate and surround yourself with other people who have either achieved or are trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve, whether it's sport or estate agency, there are certain rules of performance that do exist, and none of it's new. And we tend to, we've boiled those down to 5 fundamental principles. And I think you can apply it to someone who's trying to win Olympic medals, and we both mentor athletes who are trying to do that, or entrepreneurs or estate agents, or especially estate agents who are looking to go independent. That mindset is consistent throughout any level of performance. It just depends what vehicle you're choosing.
Look, 100%. So I've gone through the 5 rules that you've put on. So can we decipher them and unpick them a little bit? So the first one is fine.
And what we do is we when we talk, we don't talk. We talk about what we were good at, which is sport. So we tell our stories, and people take from that and apply it to their whatever they're doing.
Can I before we do those five characteristics, Stephen? Can I just pick up just quickly on you used the phrase growth mindset, and I think it's become kind of common. It's a common piece of language now. It's a phrase that many people use. That wasn't certainly wasn't used back in the day. Carol Dweck's, the curator of that insight from her work and so on. And I think we wouldn't have used that phrase, but I think one thing that's so important here when you think about what it actually means is you have to embrace failure. And you sort of touched on that there. You said we had setbacks. Yeah, we had setbacks, but we only had setbacks because we were in a world where if you didn't push and find out where the cliff edge was, the front face of the cutting edge, if we weren't on that, you're left behind. So I think where we come from is, we're not suggesting that that's the same as normal life, everyday life. I think it's too extreme, it's too severe, it's too harsh, it's too punishing, because one person in the world takes a gold medal, the rest next takes silver, then bronze, and everyone else has to just get nothing. That's not how the world operates. So I just wanted to reference that and where the traits came from, all these insights, we refer to them as non-negotiables. These were aspects that came from that world that we feel are translatable and most readily in the world of estate agents because of our work currently and more recently. We'll tell you a bit more about that. But I just want to position that fear of failure.
Yeah, good point.
I think it's so relevant in the context of a growth mindset.
I totally agree. And being an estate agent is a roller coaster. We have incredible high. We have incredible lows. Yeah. Likewise, you do as incredible sports people. Yeah. It's exactly the same. So one day you'll be selling a property.
We're happy to share with you those traits. We'll just give you a background. So we're now running a business called EA Champions, which we do, which is we're ambassadors for a cloud-based estate agency called EXP, which some people might have heard of. That came about because we did a series of presentations around the country for EXP a year or so ago. And it was really interesting. It was one of those audiences where everything you're saying is completely relevant to those people. And that, we're just talking about what it was like to have a dream, a goal, collaboration, train hard, overcome adversity, and ultimately stand on the Olympic rostrum, not once, twice, but 3 times. And it was the same as an estate agent who's just got an itch they want to scratch, and they want to try and maybe go independent. They want to build their own business, do it their way, but ultimately it's an entrepreneur's mindset. But within both our stories, you're not alone. It's about collaboration, teamwork, coaching, mentoring, all that sort of stuff. And as a result of that, we now help onboarding agents at EXP to with that piece, because what underpins everything we do is that there are 3 parts to any performance journey. You have to have knowledge. So take an estate agent. You have to have your qualifications. You have to know how to be an estate agent. But of course, knowledge without application leads to nothing. You've got to do something. Same as an athlete. So you've got to have skill. You've got knowledge and skill. And the third part, which is the space we operate in, is the mindset. And you know, you put those three together, it's a powerful combination. So that's the space that we operate. The space, we would say, between talent and performance. You know, potential is one thing, but there's a gap between potential talent and what you actually do. And part of that is just hard graft. Yeah, the routine, the discipline of going down the track, the discipline of going to the gym. Part of that is collaborating with coaches, collaborating with other athletes, having training partners, overcoming injury, overcoming adversity. And as you know, as a estate agent, this is the same whether you're an athlete trying to win Olympic medals or an estate agent trying to, you know, build your own business. And that's why what we're doing with EA Champions to build a community of like-minded agents within EXP is something that we feel is something that is sort of a perfect place for us to operate in, because, you know, Steve has property through his veins. He's from a property family. He lives and breathes property. I mean, he'll bore you all night about property. Trust me. So it's the combination of property and the mindset, which you know, makes what we're doing so exciting for us to be. We love being around estate agents. We just love the mindset of estate agents.
Well, I work with loads of estate agents up and down the country. I've been to Australia, I've been to America. I get to see the good, the bad, and the incredibly ugly. And one of the things that you just said that really, which has really touched a chord, is knowledge without application. And one of the things that I find with a lot of agents is they don't take action. They keep on doing exactly the same things over and over again.
Insanity,
and
right?
guess what? They get exactly the same results over and over again. So what tips can you give for people to actually take action and implement stuff?
Well, I think, shall I pick up on that? And maybe it's a way of introducing the traits. And it follows the lovely saying, you know, what got me here won't get me there. And I think if we follow that principle in life, we'll be okay. I think if we have and you know, it completely makes sense that we work in, you know, with assumptions about, you know, our habits, and 50% of everything we do on a day-to-day basis is born out of habit. We know that. But the real clever people are out there. They're exploring new ways, getting creative, finding, accepting that we're going to have to embrace change, possibly even initiate change. And that might bring a slight level of discomfort. And, you know, the other observation in sport is you have to find a way of being comfortable in being uncomfortable. And you never really feel fully comfortable. But, you know, pushing that boundary, pushing that, as I say, that cutting edge line is key. So, yeah, 5 traits. It might be worth going through them and just introducing what they are.
I think open-mindedness is really important. You've got to be open-minded and try something different. You know, it doesn't have to be big. When we talk about change, people think, oh my God, change is so big. From our experience as athletes, once your fundamentals are in place, actually a little change can cause a massive result. I mean, you alluded to us winning the World Championship relay in 1991. All we did was make a very small change in the running order around having 4 athletes who were ready. That's all we did. And we created a completely different level of performance. So the advice to people, if they're, you know, stagnating, is go for the easy change. Go for something really small, because if you do something small on a regular basis, before you know it, it creates a very big result. And often people get stuck because they think, oh, right, this isn't working. I've got to do something completely different. You haven't. You've just got to just do a little something that might improve an area. And as Steve said, you know, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because if you're comfortable in sport at the highest level, you're about to get beaten. You know, there's no room for complacency at the top level Olympic sport. So, you know, celebrate feeling uncomfortable, because that means that you are on the edge, and therefore you are maxing out. You know, you are there. You know, complacency and being comfortable it usually leads to a very quick decline. So anyway, sorry, Steve, you want to?
No, and I agree totally what you say, and I'll just give you an example. So for me, the easiest and quickest way for an estate agent to get their name out there is to hit record on Facebook, get loads of followers, talk about what's going on in the local market, do loads of community stuff, help your community. and people will not just hit record.
No.
They are scared of getting uncomfortable. They're scared of people thinking, oh my good God, look at me, they're terrible, my voice, whatever it is. So how can you give them, what tips can you give them to just hit record and just do it? And actually the magic happens when you come out your we're a big fan of,
we're a big fan of phrases. You might have picked up, we're sort of throwing them out there, but one that springs to mind, and I know I find myself saying this or thinking this quite a lot at the moment with certain ventures going on, but the phrase jump and the parachute will appear. You know, you got to back yourself. You've got to back yourself at some point and embrace change. And it will feel uncomfortable. It will feel unusual. And you probably will hate the sound of your voice and the way you look on camera if you watch it back. I still don't like watching myself back on camera, but I work in broadcast. I'm a commentator. So and you know what? That's okay. It's accepting that things don't have to be perfect. I think that's another thing that, you know, we lived in a world where only borderline perfect was good enough, but even so, you accepted that they can't be. So I think there's a balance there of trying new ways. The lovely work of the British cycling team and Dave Brailsford leading that in, you know, embracing marginal gains, as Roger, you know, alluded to there. Small improvements, the aggregation of those marginal gains over time can take you a long way. And embracing small changes, looking for easy wins, I think is the other aspect that will help us just move the dial. Because if we don't move the dial, we will get left behind.
And the other thing, you know, just thinking on the hoof here, Stephen, you know, you're talking about, you know, estate agents that maybe stagnate. Reach out. You know, it's not a coincidence Stephen and I are here together. This didn't just happen. We both recognized that there were things we both wanted to achieve in our personal business lives that we knew we couldn't do on our own. And, you know, we may look quite similar and sound quite similar, but we're actually quite different. We have different skill sets. And yeah, it's not easy. We've been in business now for over 15 years. You know, that's quite a long time. And I know that, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here without him and he wouldn't be sitting here without me. And so reach out to other agents. You know, my experience of estate agents in the traditional model is that, you know, it can be quite lonely. It'd be quite sort of, you know, quite territorial, quite competitive on the high street. What we love about sort of the EXP model is that geographically you've got agents all over the country and everyone is sharing knowledge. Everyone is helping each other because they don't see it as a competition. They see it as a collaboration. We want everyone to do well. That isn't my experience of estate agency locally where I am. And I think, you know, recognizing that there are other ways to do this than just the same way it's always been done. And I think it was the same as athletes. You know, you can learn, you know, a runner can learn from a thrower. You know, you can just by being around other people who are excellent, there's, you know, osmosis happens. Myself and Chris Akabusi went and lived and trained in California on the invite of a guy called Daley Thompson, who was a 2-time Olympic champion and quite good. As a result of that, we got to hang around him and train with him a little bit. But as a result of that, we got to hang around a guy called Edwin Moses, one of the greatest athletes of all time. As a result of that, we got to bump into people like Carl Lewis. And it rubs off, Stephen. And before you know it, you're at the Olympics and you're there. So, you know, that's the kind of thing I would suggest estate agents do. If you're stagnating, go and talk to other agents and go and collaborate if you can.
And what's really interesting now, and I don't think I've ever thought of my podcast, I will hear the great names of Daley Thompson, Moses, Carl Lewis, and you two as well. So thank you. But I'm really out of my comfort zone now, and what I'm doing is really uncomfortable, you know, speaking to you two gentlemen. So it's fantastic for me. And if I can do it, I promise you anybody out there can do it.
And the point is, Steve, you're doing it and you made it happen. You know,
yes.
You and Steve made it happen. It happened. And, you know, sometimes people say yes.
I know. And that's been the biggest lesson I've ever learned. Just ask the question, because the worst you could have said to me is no. And I'm, you know, incredibly grateful that you said yes. And what's really interesting now is, you know, every day for me is a learning day. So, you know, I'm still learning and I'm 55 years of age. I've been to Australia to see how the Australians work. I've been to America to see how the Americans work. But there's been a massive change in agency, and there is so much more collaboration now. There's loads of exceptional Facebook groups, whether they're EXP agents, traditional agents, hybrid agents, whatever you call them, online agents. I mean, everybody's online anyway. But the collaboration is amazing. And I think people now really want to raise the standards of agency. Because what do most people think of estate agents? Well, don't answer that. I know what the answer is. You know, we should be trusted to sell and let people to maximize. So, Steve, by the sounds of things, you've got a massive property empire. I mean, one question.
I wouldn't go that far, Steve, but yeah.
One question I'd be really interested to ask you, and then I want to come back on the straight, Steve, just with about estate agents and letting agents, is has any letting agent ever offered you to take you for a coffee to maximize your investment? Ever asked that question?
Letting agent, as in the managing agent. Yeah, do you know what? Probably have, and that's only because of where Roger and I have come from in this investment space, is that we work with investors. So investors tend to collaborate, and we were active and proactive in that world. Who suggested the coffee? I can't remember who paid. I think it was me who paid in the end. So yeah, maybe that answers your question. But I take your point. You know, it's important to reach out and spend that time and show you care, isn't it? And that's what ultimately the client, whether they're buying, selling, renting, investing, whatever, whoever they are, they want to know that the agent cares.
So can I pick up on something you said, Steve? So we're not estate agents, okay? We're ambassadors for EXP, and as a result of that, we can create EA champions. What we're trying to do, you know, you live in it and you see the change that is happening. You see it firsthand from what you're saying. What we're trying to do is create an environment of like-minded agents who would, say, join EXP but be part of EA champions if they wanted to. And Steve and I are looking to build a community and a culture that allows those people to thrive. And we will, that's what we're looking to do, because that's how it works in sport. And it doesn't seem to happen in a state agency. And it's a unique opportunity. It's a unique model. It's a unique situation that we find ourselves in. And we're at the beginning of hopefully an exciting journey. But what underpins it is our job is to attract and create a community of like-minded agents who will thrive in the environment that we will create for them. Yet we're not selling houses. They know what they're doing. But to have that support is something, as an athlete, was essential for me. I mean, coaching, mentoring, you know, just someone there, just a group of people, you know, you're in a circle, and that's what we're trying to do.
And look, I think it's fantastic. And I think, you know, as an athlete, you most probably had a nutritionist. You most probably had somebody looking at, you know, your fitness and whatever. And, you know, so you all had coaches, you know, all the time. And I think that's something big. And I'm part of a group called Agents Together. I don't know if you come across Agents Together, where we have set up a foundation where we help estate agents. So we've got about 400 mentors. We've mentored about over 900 people, all three giving up their time just to help support estate agents, which is absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant.
Coming back to your 5 traits. So I've got 5
It's going to be one of those interviews where you say, tell us about 5 traits in the first 5 minutes. And then 40 minutes later,
I know, and I'm conscious of time. And I'm conscious of time.
And we won't be long. They're very simple.
Okay, so I've got find your passion, creating power in police, power through clarity, surround yourself with talents, and deliver your maximum.
So let's start with find your passion. Everyone who goes to the Olympics has to have these 5. You haven't got these 5, ain't going to happen. That's the principle here. Okay, we consulted lots and lots of our peer group, Olympians, Paralympians, and we boiled it down to the 5. There are loads more than 5, but these were the non-negotiables. You haven't got these, ain't going to happen. So just to put it in context, the first one is what we call find your passion. That means it's got to mean more to you than just running fast around a track, because everyone who goes to the Olympics is talented and can run fast around a track. It's really identifying with your your passion, your why. Why are you going on this journey? The reason this is important is you have to own that for yourself, because it's your motive, it's your why. But also, especially when things go wrong, is to keep engaging with that, even if you can't physically train for 2 years, in my case, but to hold on to that why, because it's that why, that little flame that, you know, if you keep it alive, that will keep you going. And we won't go into any details, but you know, there are many sports people who've been written off and they come back to do incredible things, not because they were the most talented, but because they never let go of their why, and that was their guiding light. So we believe it doesn't start with your talent. It starts with, you know, really know why you're doing this, because that'll get you through.
Yeah, and moving on. So actually, just quickly on that, we're very particular with the phrase "find your passion," because what we observed in the true champions is that they will go find it and re-find it, and there will be times. We're realists, you know. We're not, you know, come on guys, you can do this. We're not, you know, we don't come from that school of thought. The glass is half full and half empty. We're realists. So there will be times when you don't feel as motivated. There will be times where you don't maybe feel as passionate. And the true champions are the ones who in those moments have a mechanism or a toolkit or some strategy to go find and ignite their passion by reconnecting with their why. It's quite simple. Moving on though, the second of the trait, again, very particular with the language here, is to create empowering beliefs. And what we mean by that is, well, first of all, the observation that you have to believe in yourself, especially when it comes to feeling uncomfortable. You know, you've admitted, you know, today, you know, there's a sense of nervousness, Stephen, and we really appreciate the time to spend with you. But you haven't let it stop you. So there's something inside of you, and this is the trait, this is the characteristic that we've observed, is that the true champions are the ones who don't let it stop them, but and do the opposite. They will create a level of belief. It doesn't mean that there's something inside that's going, oh, you know, I doubt myself a little bit, and maybe I'm not as confident as some people, or I perceive some people to be. It shouldn't stop you. It mustn't stop you. And there are ways of creating it. First and foremost, we got to accept that they're out there. Just to share with you, there is nothing more efficient at coming in, unraveling you and folding you up and crushing you as the Olympic Games if you have one iota of doubt. If there's something inside where you're questioning yourself, it will find you, and you don't want to be found. And so again, the true robust performers and we've taken this model outside of sport and introduced it across many industries, and most notably in property, and more recently as in a estate agency, is to have that level of self-belief. And if you're not feeling it, go create it. And we love helping people with that. The third is around power through clarity. And this is an interesting one, because we came from a world that was so clear. It was so simple. It was so objective. You know, we knew the date, the time, the venue. We knew the criteria under which we were going to be judged. I threw an 800-gram javelin. Roger ran 400 meters around the track. It didn't change. But yet most of the opposition that we went up against made decisions that weren't aligned. And what we enjoy helping our team and anyone who wants to join our team do is to wake up every day with that same level of clarity. Because again, that's a decision, not a gift. It's something that of course, the world's changing, and we live in possibly the most fragile that we've had in our existence. We're both in our 50s as well. You know, over the last five and a half decades, it's probably more fragile now than it's ever been, and the change is afoot. So what that means is the onus is on us all individually and collectively to build that clarity.
Yeah. The fourth trait, well, only two more to go, is what we call surround yourself with talent, which is, you call it teamwork, collaboration, but it comes out of our experiences. But the principle that, you know, there's a lovely phrase by the African distance runners, which is, if you want to run fast, then run alone. But if you want to run far, then run together. And it's the fact that if you've got a dream of achieving something big, you are far more likely to achieve it with other people on the bus with you. I quite famously talk about my relationship with Chris Akabusi, you know, a very famous athlete, big character, very different to me. But we achieved things together we would never have achieved on our own. We took ourselves to places, we made big decisions that we wouldn't have made individually, that resulted in us both having successful careers. And as I say, it's why Steve and I sit here together. So, that concept of surrounding yourself with talent or other people who are trying to achieve the things you want to achieve. I just think I often get parents coming up to me going, oh, my son or daughter, they're really talented. What advice can you give us? And what they want you to say is, oh, you need to do this nutrition, you need to buy these spikes, you need to do this. That's what they want to hear. What I tell them is, if your kid wants to run fast, then they need to go and run with fast people. And that sounds so silly and so simple, but it's true. If you want to run fast, go and run with fast people. Because if you don't run with fast people, you don't know how good you are. And sometimes people think they're really good until they go into the big wide world and they realize, oh, actually, I'm not as good as everyone told me I was. But you find out pretty quickly when you run with faster people. And then it takes you to a level of performance that you would never accessed because you had no concept of it. So collaboration, teamwork is such a huge trait in high performance.
It's funny that before we go to the last one. Sorry, Steve, go on.
I was going to say, I'm going to make you laugh now. So my sport is walking football.
Okay.
No laughing. So,
no.
And my wife passed away a couple of years ago, and I've taken it up, and I really enjoy it. But I love playing with the better players. So I play at Barnet Walking Football Team. We've got internationals there from England, Wales, Ireland, and I've been observing them. And I'm now starting to play. I'm not with the internet on the same pitches as them. I haven't managed to get into the England squad yet. That's the aim, he says. But playing with better players has raised my game considerably.
Totally.
And, I love doing it. I love playing with it. I love playing in competitions and seeing how we're better players and observing them and thinking, right, what
Stephen,
can I do?
The mindset, I'll give you an analogy, okay? You got a choice. You can either play against people who you're always going to beat, or you can play better against people who are probably going to beat you. What would you choose? And I know myself well enough that I would rather play better with people who are better than me and probably lose, but I would feel better doing that than winning easily. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
And a slightly different angle for the same concept. I remember you mentioned Chris Akabusi. I still remember my first proper international representative vest. You get your vest, you get GB vest. And it was the European Team Championships, Europa Cup it used to be called. It was in Gateshead in 1989. And I remember javelin was first event along with the 4 hurdles. And I remember Chris Akabusi came off the second bend, entered the home straight in the lead. The crowd went crazy. I'm on the infield. It was super noisy and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I've got the same vest on. He won his race, right? He went off and great. I had to step up. I had to. There was no choice. I had to stay vest on. Now I'm not. That's a tenuous suggestion that he impacted my performance, but I remember it. That's a lot of years on. What's that? 34 years on. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the feeling like it was yesterday of having to step into the best version of myself. And that's, I suppose, the other angle of what we're saying around surround yourself with talent, because it just rubs off. Anyway, final trait, final characteristic. We don't call them traits, but we do think these are non-negotiable. And it's to be your maximum. What we mean by this is, and you touched on it earlier with the growth mindset, it's the idea that there's an area of kind of unexploited potential beyond what we perceive to be our maximum output. The clever people, the psychologists, the business coaches in many ways will agree on this. That most of what we do on a day-to-day basis is born out of habit. That's where we're most comfortable. And we talked about this earlier, getting comfortable in being uncomfortable. Tap into that space. And if you can you can start to really motor, because there's an unlimited amount of potential out there for you to go get. So that's the final one, deliver your maximum.
Okay, so I'm conscious of time. Couple of questions. Who inspires both of you?
Interesting. I'm jumping between sport nowadays. I'm big into my golf. I do really enjoy my golf, and I'm thinking back to there's been a bunch of golfers across the time of Seve Ballesteros, from yesteryear, sadly passed away, Tiger Woods. The champions. Do you know what? Live sport still plays a big part of our lives, and I think I certainly find what's super inspirational. We had the World Championships in Budapest this summer, and you may have heard of an athlete called Femke Bol, 4-hurdler, ran the relay, fell on the first day of competition, smashed her face in the ground. You know, sport's brutal. She came back on the last day and ran down the American from somewhere where she shouldn't have done. And I that inspires me. I love it. Our sport of athletics is so undersold. It's pure. And I still find it super inspirational. So maybe not a household name, but a situation.
For me, it is a household name. You know, we're going to stick to sport, stick to what we know. I'll tell you who inspires me, and I'll put it out there. I think is arguably the greatest British sports person of all time. There you go. Is Andy Murray, and I'll tell you why. And it comes back to all the traits we talked about, but particularly the first one, because Andy Murray is still playing, and he shouldn't be. You know, he's won Wimbledon twice. He's one of those. He's got all the money in the world, and he had the hip operation, the hip replacement, and he kept going. And he never said he was retiring. Everyone thought he retired. I don't know Andy Murray. I've met him once, but not properly. But I'm guessing he loves playing tennis. He loves competing and playing tennis, and that's why he's carrying on. He can't be doing it for the money. He can't be doing it for the fame. He's probably not going to win a major again, obviously. But he's doing it because quite obviously, he's doing it for the reason he started doing it. He loves playing tennis and competing. And to hold on to that and just to come back and still be competing at a very high level when he shouldn't be, that inspires me. That really inspires me.
I've got the same hip from the same surgeon, and I know it's a challenge. Trust me, what he's doing is unbelievable. Yeah. Seriously, I do.
What was your second question, Steve? Because I know I've got to go. We've got to go in a couple of minutes.
Okay, so you mentioned Growth Mindset, Carol Dweck. Any other books that you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go first, Steve. I mean, for me, you know, we've read lots of books. We've attended, you know, Tony Robbins. I have certainly years ago, and you know, read the books, done the seminars. Often it's the simplest ones that have the biggest impact. And I think for me, the one I think underpins a lot of the stuff we do is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I just think it's just as simple as those traits are. They just stand the test of time. And, you know, nothing's particularly new when it comes to mindset and motivation. What's new and unique is what you do with it. And the 7 Habits, I think, is a really good book. And it's an easy read, which is always useful.
Yeah. And for me, the one that's really, you know, a few books really make you stop and properly think, and it's Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. I don't know if you come across that book. It's a lot in there, a lot to take in, but there's some amazing that we can apply to everyday life. I think it's a genius book.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much. Pleasure. If people want to get hold of you, want to find out more about EA Champions, how do they do that, please?
So yeah, eachampions.co.uk. Our contacts are on there, and it's Roger and I. You know, we are the business. This isn't a veneer. We aren't a couple of faces on a front screen here. We are the business. You know, we take the time to speak directly with the agents that contact us via the website, and we love doing that. And there's no obligation. We're happy just to have a conversation, have a chat. If we can help in any way, then we'd love to do that.
Yeah, and you know, you can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us lots of ways. But you know, what we're trying to do is to, if anyone wants to chat on Zoom, just to catch up, have a chat, get to chat with us on what they're doing, hear what we're doing, got interest, please do. That's what we like doing. We like being around estate agents, Stephen, and I know not everyone does, but we actually do. So there you go.
That's a first. I'm just gonna put that in a little reel. Somebody, Roger Black likes estate agents.
There's your title. There's your title for this podcast. There you go.
We do.
Brilliant. Look, thanks very much, everybody. Thank you very much for watching, listening. Please like it, share it, get it out there. It's not every day you get 2 Olympians on the podcast. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a fantastic afternoon. Really
Absolute
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Nice to meet you. Thanks, Steve.